Hello, the internet, and welcome back to What I Think I Know. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what I think I know. I'm not sure. The internet's been pretty certain about it, but I have no idea. I did get asked, why do I always look off to the side? And it's because I have my notes on the side here. I'm not reading, especially when I'm actually just talking and looking down like this. I'm not actually reading anything. It's more of like I don't know, like a nervous movement or whatever, where just naturally, instead of staring straight ahead at the camera, I distracted kind of thing, looking around, using something as an excuse to look at. But anyway, that's why I'm always looking down to the side here. Um, Today we've got some fun things to talk about. A little bit about figs. We've got some deadly animals to chat about. Gavin Newsom and the whole Epstein thing going around. Just touching on those a little bit. Um, if we have time, we'll get into um, tip stuff. Like if you work in a restaurant and you get tips, that kind of tips. And maybe a little bit about cell phone battery kind of stuff. And then we got some updates from last week. So I'm going to leave the updates for the end. I was told I should do that. Makes everything fit better, apparently. I don't know, but let's dig into it. And here's the intro. It doesn't exist yet. I do apologize. It's coming soon. I just have to kind of fit my schedule to my buddy's schedule. I don't play string instruments. I'm hoping to have a little bit of string instrument in my intro and transitions and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to find a schedule. Neither of us have very much time. So we're working it out. First on the docket today, talking about figs. So there's a really cool thing about figs. They require a very specific species of bee in order to reproduce. And funnily enough, that bee requires a fig to reproduce as well. That's a very interesting concept. Kind of takes you to, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Only problem is, the chicken or the egg is an incredibly easy question to answer. A lot of people don't have more than 2 seconds to think about it, I guess. But if you take a couple seconds, you'll realize that, well, you can't take just any old bird or animal of any kind and turn that animal into another. But you can have a birth defect that changes everything. So take a pheasant and a turkey. And those are pretty poor examples. Pheasants are tend to be a little bit smaller than, especially an American chicken. I mean, there's tons of different kinds of chickens that come in all different shapes and sizes. But we got some chickens out here in the States that are pretty darn fat. Um, we also have some enormously large turkeys as well. In California, we used to have a ton of um, wild pheasants. We don't as much anymore, and most of the wild pheasants are actually just escapees from pheasant farms because we kind of hunted all the pheasants out, and whatever farmer has native pheasants, well, they're gonna invite their hunting friends. So we made what are basically pheasant farms, where it's a big ranch. They raise pheasants, and then you could go there. They'll plant some pheasants in your field, and you can go have a pheasant hunt. It's more for kind of practice, training your dog, um, and just having a good time with your family. It's kind of like fishing, you know? But that's sort of like all hunting. It's just fishing in a different manner. Anywho, don't know how we got to fishing. Chickens, turkeys, pheasant farm. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Anyway, uh, back to chickens. So, in order to make a chicken, the very first chicken that was ever born was born to a non chicken. Very simply put, There was either some crossbreeding going in with different animals that were very similar to chickens, or there was a birth defect in the actual egg. So the egg came first, hatched, and now we have a chicken. That's the only way it's possible. If you believe that, I would advise you to not speak up. Just keep stuff to yourself. Keep your theories, all that stuff. Keep that to yourself from now on. Because they're definitely wrong. If you have any part of you that says, yeah, the chicken might have come first, stop that. Go away. Um, so the reason I bring all this stuff up is about the chicken and the egg is simply because that can't really have happened with the fig and the bee. Um, if figs require the bees to reproduce, how could the fig have ever become anything? And if the bee needs a fig to reproduce, how could the bee have become anything? If they both require each other, then there's no way they could have began at different times. So, if we kind of look into that, there are some bees who do some weird things, like they plant their eggs in different animals. We all know a bot fly. Um, that's the fly that bites you and lays its eggs under your skin. One of my worst fears, right there. Far below rabies. That's probably my biggest fear in life. Um, but yeah, bot flies are pretty gross. Wouldn't want to be hanging out with a bunch of them. So essentially, you have one critter that some versions of it require assistance from other animals, but not that they couldn't reproduce without one very specific type of thing. And then, sort of the same deal with figs. If it's just like a flower, couldn't just about anything pollinate it? Why does it have to have a bee crawl up inside it? And where did it begin? Where was the first nearly a fig and the first nearly a fig bee? What were they doing before they found each other? Was this legitimately just some random type of fruit, some random type of bee that came together, bred and created kind of through, the two bees? Over here, I'm trying to get the angle right. The two bees, the two fruits, uh, come together. Essentially, one lays eggs in the other, and sort of vice versa. Um, and then all of a sudden, we've got a fig and a fig bee. That's very interesting. I don't know. I've probably got some fallacies in there. Um, point them out down below in the comments. Tell me what I did wrong there. I will say I did a report on Charles Darwin when I was in like sixth or seventh grade, something like that. And I had actually found uh, evidence that he did not believe in the type of evolution that is sold in schools these days. He didn't really believe in that. That was kind of somebody else later down the line who came up with that theory. Um, uh, and something really funny I watched the other day. I was watching a nature documentary thing about the Americas, North and South America. I believe it was in uh, the Gulf of America, somewhere on that kind of southern end of it, around Cuba, or whatever. I'm blanking on the term for that whole the Caribbean, the Caribbean. So I believe it was in the Caribbean. There's several islands right next to each other, and the narrator said that essentially there are the same species of frog on these like four or five different islands, and each island, because of evolution, all the frogs are different colors. And then immediately after, he says they're different colors because their food is different on each island. The islands aren't very far apart. They're far enough where seeds from a flower wouldn't travel, and I believe that's what these frogs were eating was plant life. Um, So it's entirely possible that the plant life is different on each island. Just look at the Hawaiian Islands; they're very different islands. Um, that's just an easy thing to kind of Google. What does one island have that another island doesn't? There's plenty of things, like cats, for instance. Maui, overrun. The other islands, I can't remember, but I do know that there's some islands who are having no problem with cats. Um, uh, anyway, back to what we're talking about. So these frogs on all these little islands that are different colored, they're all the same species. The genetics are all, as close as cousins and siblings uh, can be, kind of thing. It's like a human to a human, not a frog versus a snake. Those are very different genetics, um, but they're all the same species. It's just the food that they're eating that changes the color of their skin, which is not evolution. That is simply dietary. If I ate too many carrots, I would turn orange, or is it yellow? I can't remember. I think you turn yellow after eating too many carrots. Doesn't matter. What I'm trying to get at is this documentary, this scientific documentary, stated that frogs changed colors because of evolution. Oh, and also they eat different foods that is actually in charge of their pigment. I don't know, man. Every time I look at mainstream science, it makes me disbelieve the things I 100% believed in. I would never have said no to evolution, really, had it not been for those frogs and the figs too. I don't understand how the fig bee and the fig grew up, or whatever, how they evolved without each other. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It sounds more like some all-knowing creator decided that figs are a fantastic fruit, which they are, and that they were going to be a little extra special because they're sort of the Lord's fruit in a lot of ways. In most countries, they are seen as something incredibly special, used as gifts and things like that, that mean a lot. Um, so, anywho, that's what I got for you on evolution. Moving on, this is where an intro would be, or a transitional, something like that'll be. Our deadliest animal. This is something that kills me every time I hear it. Now, if you'll remember, I think it was the first episode, I had a thing about button ups versus button downs. So this actually comes from the same person. She once asked, what is the deadliest animal on the planet? I immediately said mosquitoes, because there is no other answer that is correct other than mosquitoes. And then she corrected me and goes, no, no, I said mammal. Well, you didn't, but that's okay. Let's stick with mammal. I rattled off a few different animals, and she kept going, no, no, no. And I, the whole time, knew that she was getting to hippos. You hear it all the time. We've all heard it for years and years and years. Hippos are the most dangerous mammals on the planet. It might be sort of true. They are incredibly dangerous animals. I would never want to get even like 100 yards from a hippo. Maybe 100 yards is quite a long ways. But I would probably say 25 yards, that's about my limit to getting close to a hippo. Incredibly fast animals, very, very territorial, extremely deadly. Unfortunately, if you just Google it really quick, you realize that that's not even close to being true. Um, just really quickly, hippos kill approximately 500 people each year. Elephants, and this is where you see like, politics is kind of playing on this. Like this is how politics works. So hippos, for some reason, it's just a solid 500. It's just every single year, 500 people die from hippos. Maybe it's possible. Elephants every year kill 100 to 500. Wouldn't that kind of be the same with hippos? Are hippos killing the exact same number of people every single year? They're always killing 500 people a year? Or is that more like, um, I don't know, maybe there was a year that was really heavy in hunting hippos and the poachers got too close, or maybe they were after gator skins or something, and so they were getting in the water, and the hippos kept killing them. Whatever it was, I don't know where they got that 500 number from. But elephants, according to this, 100 to 500, that would mean that there has been at least 1 year that elephants killed 500 people, which means they're exactly as deadly as hippos. Moving on, we have deer. They gave us one solid number for deer, and that is 440. So apparently, every single year, 440 people exactly die. Not 300, not 520, but 440. What's to say 60 people more in a year don't die? Now, are we just taking a number like that 300 to 500, kind of like what we're using with elephants, even though that one's 100 to 500? But if deer said uh, 300 to 500, that's a window that encompasses 440. By my math so far, both deer and elephants kill just the same number of people every year as hippos. And, well, then I Googled one more animal and just kind of quit. Because while hippos, elephants, and deer combined might kill 1,500 people a year, 1,500, dogs kill anywhere from 25,000 to 35,000 people per year, making dogs the world's most deadly mammal. I think that's the end of the story. So, everybody, dogs. Anybody ever asks you again, yeah, it was dogs. It wasn't fucking hippos. That's a funny story. It makes you go, oh, wow, the world's so crazy. We thought hippos were cute. No, no, we thought dogs were cute too. Um, there you go. That's what really grinds my gears. Frankly, I'll rant about that any day. Um, and on to another little, what do you call it? Transition. Something like that. We have Gavin Newsom. He was did a podcast with Sean Ryan. If you don't know Sean Ryan, very cool guy, ex military. I don't know, but it wasn't just basic army. Something special in the military. But he sat down for 4 hours with Gavin Newsom. I think it was released earlier this week on Monday. I think it was Monday. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Not important. I watched the entire 4 hours. I listened to. I'm not going to look at him. I listened to the entire 4 hours. It was absolute hell. Oh God, Gavin Newsom is the biggest piece of scum I have ever seen. Um, One of the biggest things that pissed me off was he used the phrase "God damn" in just about every other sentence. It was extremely painful to listen to. And of course he did. Of course he did. A man who has never prayed to Jesus in his entire life brings up the Bible, of course. I don't remember what it was exactly. It wasn't even very big. But he goes, this goddamn thing and that goddamn and goddamn it. Goddamn damning. Damn. Goddamn. But if you read the New Testament, something or other. Why do they always bring up the Bible as if they know any of it? That just really bothers me. Um, as a Christian, the Democrats are always trying to seem like they're Christians. It's purely to get more Republican votes. That's all it is. That's the only reason he went on Sean Ryan. That's the only reason he had Charlie Kirk on his show and darn it, the other guy I'm blanking on his name. Um, the goal for him is to appeal to Republicans more. And that's really what he did. Sean Ryan, right at the beginning, you guys don't have to watch much to see the part where he is gifted a firearm. He says, "Wow, this is so cool. Thank you. You know, and I bet you wouldn't expect this from me, but I'm for guns. I'm for guns." And then he says, "I'm not for." He says it really quick. I'll tell you this. It was like 45 seconds. I should just play it. In fact, forget it. Here it is.
You know what? People, last thing people would expect is that I respect this gift.
Really?
I appreciate, yeah, man. I'm not anti-gun at all. I'm for just some gun safe common sense that I think vast majority of folks, the right and the left, agree. And I think we've lost a little touch with some common sense around background checks. I think there's an age appropriateness. I do have some, I'm challenged by large capacity magazine clips in urban centers and weapons of war that are out there, sometimes outgunning the police. And I've experienced that directly with the loss of a police officer who was gunned down by an AK-47, and the police were outgunned in Bayview Hunters Point in San Francisco. But otherwise, man, people have the right to bear arms, and I got no ideological opposition to that at all.
I hope you enjoyed that. About 45 seconds, he packs in every little thing in the liberal agenda. Every bit, the whole military weapons and common sense gun laws, all that sort of stuff. No gun law is common sense. None of them. None of them. Getting rid of fully automatics is the only thing that you could kind of say is common sense. However, if you understand anything about who's actually the criminal at the moment, or using the firearms criminally, you'll know that like 90% of them are stolen firearms. They're illegal firearms. They can make the switch for the Glock, the little full auto handgun that you see on the internet. That's just 3D printed. That's all it takes. California did try to ban Glocks entirely. They wanted to go to everybody's house and collect their Glocks, simply because you could take off the little back plate, just swap right out, then it's fully automatic. Should be perfectly legal. There is no real danger to it unless you are a criminal already. We know that because criminals, when they go out to break a law, their intention is not to follow the laws. It's actually to break the laws. So if you're going to break a law, why not break the law? Makes sense to me. I don't know how it doesn't make sense to other people. But criminals are criminals and they're going to do criminal things. Simple as that. I am a law-abiding citizen. I have a family. I have my own life, even if I didn't have a family. Being a law-abiding citizen gives me the right to life over a criminal who is attempting to take my life. It's very simple. I'm doing a good thing. You're doing, or even I'm doing nothing. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. You're trying to harm me. End of story. That's all you need to know. That's about all I got on Gabby Newscomb. Horrible guy. Pretty much lied through the entire interview. One small part, though, it is absolutely terrifying how good he is at talking. Do not be swayed by him. Do not believe the crap that he is laying on you, because it is 100% not true. He is 1000% for the liberal agenda of every kind. He is not in any way Republican, and he would be absolutely horrible for this country if he ever gets any more power than he already does. California being the fourth largest economy, that's not a good thing necessarily. China, India, they're real big economies too. I wouldn't want to live in either of those countries, okay? If you need any more information than that, please Comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you disagree, let's have a deeper conversation about it. Let's find out more. Okay. More transitional noises. And we have just a little bit on Epstein. I know this is a really crazy time. If you are a Republican, you kind of spent the last 8 years or so going, please, please, somebody say something. No, it wasn't 8 years. It was 2019 that he was arrested. So 6 years or so. Was it 2019? I think it was 2019. Anywho, doesn't really matter. Um, Almost impossible to say what's going on with that. It's too early. We got to give that maybe another month or two. I kind of have two theories. One is that Trump is actually telling us 100% of the truth, and we were all duped. Um, but I don't really get that, because then why is Ghislaine Gazelle, um, whatever, Maxwell, why is she in prison? Um, I don't understand that. I thought it was for like trafficking thousands of girls, uh, and they were all being trafficked to one guy who also just happened to have like everybody important in the world hanging out with him. I don't understand it. I do know that back in 2009, I think it was, when Epstein had his first shot. Sorry, I can't say that word. His first bad behavior with women and minor women. Um, the guy in charge of all that, I can't remember his name, but the guy in charge of all that, when he was subpoenaing everybody, going around when you're served, you got to talk because you know something. Trump was the only person on his entire list who said, like, yeah, I'll absolutely come on down. I'll tell you everything you need to know. I'll answer all your questions. No problem. I got your back. Which tends to mean that he didn't have anything to do with it. It doesn't guarantee that by any means, but it certainly tends to make you think in that direction. So I really don't know what's going on. Like I said, I kind of think either Trump is actually telling the truth and nothing really happened, or he's using sort of Democrat tactics, gaslighting everybody until we kind of give up on it, and then he's going to spring into action and take a bunch of people down. Now, I don't know what's going to happen there. Only time will tell. That's what I do know. So I am not going to say anything further on that. Obviously, I would love for a list to come out. Like, we've already got a list of just the basic everybody who was on his plane and all that stuff. That's why we know Trump is a part of the list. The list. But that's not the list we're looking for. We are looking for, like Pam Bondi said, she has thousands of hours of essentially child videos that are too inappropriate. But we want to know who the fellas, because it wasn't just a video of a child, I'm sure. There was a video of, there were thousands of videos of children with adult men. That's the list we want to know. We want to know who those adult men were. That's what we're looking for. Again, it kind of falls under what I just said. There's kind of the two options. Either it's true and nothing really happened and Gazelle Maxwell is in prison for no reason, or they're like holding back for some reason. They've got some surprise, something or other. I really don't understand it. I don't know. But that's pretty much all I got for you on that. And that's kind of everything I've got for today. I think we're going to have to talk about cell phone stuff again. This is like the third week I'm pushing it off. But we're going to talk about that next week. We're going to talk about kind of tip pooling mostly next week. Tips in general, just like, should we tip at all? I personally don't really think so, and I work for tips. So take that as you will. Updates on last week. At the beginning, like I said, we were going to push the updates till the end. My coworker Daniel had some little update requests. Uh, talking about all the um, measures. I'm blanking on the word. Hold on. Yeah, there you go. Assembly bills. Um, AB or Assembly Bill AB 665 223 727 495. They are the bills I talked about last week. Go back to the other episode if you need more information about them. Um, they're true, they're real. I believe 3 of 4 are already signed into law. Unfortunately, they're like 400 to 1,000 page documents. Um, it's really difficult to go through and find everything. Um, and I will be honest, I don't have record of what section and all that they were in. So I'm going to try to go back this week and find them again. I have seen them. They are there. They do exist. Everything I talked about last week. I just have to go back and find them, and I am so screwed for time. But I'm doing my best. I will find them, hopefully, for next week. Hopefully. I guess I can't promise that, but hopefully. That's a lot of paperwork. Um, but yeah, they are true. I will say the Trevor Act. There is a little bit more to that than I knew last week. I found out that 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline is a part of the Trevor Act. I don't really know how it fits in, but I do know people who work for the 988 Crisis Hotline. Um, and actually, I know some kind of like higher up ish people um, in an area that I won't say anything about. There's offices all over the country. It is a nationwide organization. Um, so no, I'm not telling on somebody, but I do know, as any corporate business is, there's some wacky stuff that goes on. Not anything like we talked about last week. Just more, employer to employee kind of bullcrap, just like every other business. I'm talking like scheduling and all that stuff. So they are just a normal business. It's a nonprofit, I do believe. But what I'm getting at is like they're not the heinous part of these bills. They're actually an incredible group. Like I said, I'm pretty close to some people who work there. I know how the system works pretty darn well, and I just think it's fantastic for anybody who is feeling down or whatever, feeling suicidal. You don't have to be feeling suicidal to call them, but that is truly what they're there for. If you are in a crisis, that's really what they're there for. But 988 is such an easy phone number to kind of remember and whatnot, that like if you need help and you're not in a crisis, you're not like going to end your life today, give 988 a call. They will help you out finding the resources that you do need. Maybe their line isn't the correct phone line to be calling, but they'll find you who you should be calling, like a long-term talking person. It didn't make sense. But what I'm getting at is the suicide crisis hotline is for suicide crises. Um, and therefore they have to keep the lines open to people in a crisis. So if you're just kind of feeling down and you just need somebody to talk with and help you through this moment, again, give them a call, please. They will find you the right person to talk to. They just might not have the kind of time, essentially, to talk to somebody not in an absolute crisis right now. But again, wonderful organization that is part of the Trevor Act in, I think it was AB 727. Um, uh, that part of it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I'm a big fan. I will say that if you are feeling down, it is probably because you either don't have a purpose or you are not exercising. Hydration will make you feel depressed. Lack of hydration will make you feel depressed, as well as a lack of physical activity, lack of stimulation up here. So basically, if you're just sitting around all day looking at your phone and you find yourself depressed, yeah, can't be surprised. I've personally been through massive depression. I know how it is. I know how it feels. I know more than you could ever imagine that I would know. um, if you don't believe me, I'd mention the nice warm blanket. And if you don't understand that, then you're probably not depressed at all. So, good on you. All right, moving on to our last point of the day. And I'm most excited about this, I think. Um, my boy Daniel, my work buddy, he also wanted to hear a little bit more about the gangsters. I had mentioned like the old mobsters of the 20s and stuff were terrible shots. Um, I can't remember what else I said, but um, regardless, let's dive into it a little bit. The kind of the Chicago style or the Chicago era gangsters. It was all kind of from 1923 to 1930, give or take a few years. It started really like 1903 and ended more like 19. Well, it still kind of goes on in some places, but I didn't say anything. Um, so, Irish and Italian mobs kind of moved into Chicago because of what is essentially a literal underworld. Chicago was built on a swampy marsh, uh, Lake Michigan. I think it's on the edge of Lake Michigan. I can't remember which lake that is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Not super important. It has to be Lake Michigan, right in between Minnesota and Michigan. Yeah, I'd assume that's Lake Michigan. Anywho, um, so the city of Chicago was built on the edge of Lake Michigan in a swamp, essentially. So they had to lift the city at one point, which is um, the process of essentially getting a giant screw, putting it under the building, or several hundred giant screws, and then screwing them up. And as you screw it, each time you rotate, the building gets a little bit higher and higher. So you can actually keep the building fully functional with offices and all that stuff running and lift the building. I think it was between like 4 and 15 feet that they lifted all these structures. And it created under the city a literal underworld. I don't know if the term underworld came before this. Um, it is often stated, like online, that this is where the term the underworld came from. I kind of think it was probably more Dante's Inferno, except I haven't read that in years. And frankly, I didn't Google any of that. I could have, should have, but didn't. So we move forward. So they raise Chicago up. They can all the criminals can live underground, and this created all sorts of different things. They were doing um, what do you call it? Whatever scams on the military. They would sign up for the military, and they'd get a sign-on bonus, and then they'd go back to the underground in Chicago. Um, they'd be protected, and they'd have a little extra cash, and then they'd a little later just go out and sign up because nobody had any DNA or anything like that, computers even. It was just, oh, your name's Jim Bob. Oh, great to meet you, Jim Bob. And then next day, you look familiar, but your name's Kevin, so I must not know you. Whatever. Um, let's see. Just an interesting little fact. In 1924, there were 16 murders in gang murders in Chicago. By 1929, there were 64 gang deaths. There was, well, you know what? Before I get into that, actually, there's kind of two things I wanted to talk about. More on what the gangsters were doing in certain places. doing things like Al Capone bringing 200 plus gunmen to well, all the polling places across Chicago to try to get everybody to vote the right way. There was a gun, it was a big gunfight, and Capone's brother actually died, and a whole bunch of stuff. So that's just some crazy stuff. Johnny Torrio, uh, probably the best gangster ever. Created, kind of was the first generation Chicago gangster. Kind of started all that, along with plenty of other guys. Wasn't the only one. And he took a running business or a running gang kind of thing, running mob from another guy. Calissimo? I can't remember his name. Had him murdered or murdered him himself. Nobody really knows. But he took over that, and he actually ended up giving the organization to Al Capone directly. And it happened because Johnny Torrio set up fella O'Banion, who was very big in Chicago. He was famous for, amongst other things, going into bars and restaurants and things like that, and while someone's in the bathroom, he shoots off the door handle of the bathroom and breaks in and essentially tells you who you're voting for. Anyway, Johnny Torrio has this guy gunned down, and so this other guy's men put a hit out on Johnny Torrio. He ends up getting shot 4 times by man, everybody knows Bugsy Moran and another fella, kind of important fella, but not important to this. Anyway, shot 4 times in the arm, the jaw, the lungs, and the stomach, and he survives. Not too much problem, but he does retire after this, and he gives everything to Al Capone. They retaliate, back and forth, back and forth. And then there's one in particular that this is really what I was very much referencing last week. 7 cars turned up kind of end to end to this hotel that they found Al Capone was staying in. And from these 7 cars, they fire somewhere between 200 and 1,000 rounds of assumably 45 caliber into this building. And I don't know about injuries. I'm sure somebody got injured, but not one person lost their life. 1,000 rounds and not one person died. That's pretty funny, to be honest. Those are some bad shooters right there. Yeah, just some crazy stuff. Now, again, it goes back and forth, and we end really with the Valentine's Day massacre. I'm sure everybody's heard of that. It's the guys got lured into a garage and shot to death. I believe it was by 4 gunmen. I don't remember exactly how many shooters there were, but there were 7 men shot to death. The hit was supposed to be on Bugsy Moran, but he ended up coming a little bit late, and some of the shooters they had brought a police car as kind of disguise. So when Bugsy showed up late, he saw the police car and took off running. They fired an interesting number. Some reports say 70. Some reports say like 160. Well, 160 kind of has to be the number, essentially, because the 7 men were hit 10, 15, 9, 9, 12, 14, and 25 times. That's the number corresponding with each person's bullet bullet wounds. The guy hit 14 times, actually survived for a while, long enough for the cops to show up. And when they asked him, "Who did this? What happened? Who shot you?" he said, "Nobody shot me." Like a true freaking gangster there. "Nobody shot me. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Go on the other way." And then he died, of course. But in only bullet wounds, that's 94 bullet wounds. So, probably not 70 rounds. However, I will say that they did use a shotgun. Some people say only one round from the shotgun was fired. Some say a couple. But the guy who was shot 25 times, 16 of those were holes from a shotgun. So that could be 2 pumps from a shotgun if they're using some buckshot with 8 balls in each cartridge. That could math out to round about 70. But I don't really believe that. I think it was more like 160, 200. There were a lot more casings on the ground than 70, in my opinion. You can actually just look up the pictures for that. I should have put a link in there. But I don't really know how to do that yet. Now, that is kind of just all the fun we have with gangsters. Kind of dumb stuff. The ATF or the NFA illegalized silencers in retaliation, even though they didn't use silencers. They also illegalized short barrel shotguns, like I told you last week, which I'll put a clip of a video to kind of close this out. I guess I'll put that clip right here.
Here, this is a 12 gauge shotgun. It is just simply declared a firearm. And we put a demonstrated concepts recoil strap on the end. This really helps control. We're just using birdshot. Get our hand in the recoil strap. Here we go. I think that will do.
Did you see how many straps he had just to keep his hands on that shotgun? He had both hands tied to it. Does that look like an optimal weapon to you? Does it even look concealable? Because I don't think it does. What are you gonna do? I do actually have one more example of just a bit going back to the gangsters. So now we've seen what short-barreled shotgun they could have been using, and actually that's a legal shotgun. Short-barreled would have been just a little bit shorter. That's probably right on the limit. So cut a half an inch off that shotgun, and it's illegal. But what the gangsters in Chicago were predominantly using was what was fondly referred to as the Chicago typewriter, or the Thompson submachine gun. This is just a BB gun. It's not a real gun. Shoots little metal BBs, but this is what they were using. Super sweet, pretty high rate of fire. This is this is again, BB gun, so it holds like 50 rounds or 50 little BBs. But this is what the 20 round magazine would look like. They do have a big drum magazine that, obviously it looks like a drum. You can Google pictures of it. It's not that hard. So that's what they were using. They would just tend to kind of hip fire it, and what you get is what you get. Hopefully it was good. Additional piece to camera here. I might have to start actually writing a script because I'm missing a lot of my main points. I'm just kind of rambling on, and I do apologize, but hey, I'm getting there. We'll make it right eventually. I did miss this. This is a very important thing. The whole short-barreled rifle and shotgun thing. We saw the shotgun. This is the rifle, about an 11-inch barrel. Minimum is 16, so that's a felony. Even though the rifle in total is about 32 inches long. You could have a 25-foot long rifle, but if your barrel is only that long, that's a felony. It's not really about concealing. It's about controlling. The reason they had a $200 fee is because this rifle cost about $200 at the time. It was one of the most expensive firearms on the market, and that tax was about the same price. So if you could afford two of these, then maybe that law wouldn't affect you like it would normal people. Not Al Capone, surprisingly. Anywho, back to the show. So, really, that's all. We have no worry about gangsters using legally purchased firearms anymore, which is really important. Because back in these days, those guys would just go to the gun store and buy whatever off the rack because there were no background checks. There were no nothing. We didn't do anything. We just sold stuff like it was a free country. Huh. What a world. And now, because we can't just go buy guns, people who shouldn't have them have found illegal ways of getting them. Anywho, that's really all I got. I'm just stalling at this point. Although I'd never be stalling. Damn commie. Well, yeah, I guess that's kind of it. So next week's episode, of course, we'll have a little bit of updates here and there. Maybe, I don't know. I think I kind of covered that all right. Although I did just ramble through the whole lot. So when I go to review this, we'll see if I even have all the information I wanted to put in there. Probably not. I never tend to. I don't know why, but I do kind of struggle talking to just a computer. The things I'm thinking don't really come out how I want them to because I've already thought them. I think I'm like rehearsing what I'm going to say, and then I've already said it, so then I don't say it here. So I just got to stop thinking during the week, maybe. Or realistically have an episode every single day. But we'll get there. We will get there. So tomorrow, next week, we're going to talk about how many ways there are that a man can die. I tend to believe there's only 3 possible ways that a man can die. We'll dive into that next week, along with... I can't read my writing. Oh! What is the definite answer? Definitive. What is the answer to the question, what will propel our motor vehicles or cars? Because it might not be a motor. Anyway, what is the definitive answer? We have one? Do we have one? I think we do. Let's find out next week. Thank you guys for coming along on this stupid adventure I always take you down. I had a lot of fun talking to probably like 2 or 3 people this week. Eventually, if this show ever gets big, then all the people who like it will be able to come back and watch all these shows. So hi to all those people in the future. I'm glad you've enjoyed any of the show. I hope you continue to enjoy. I hope you enjoy the new version you've been watching. I'm sure it's a lot different than this. There's a lot of ideas up here that just haven't made it to paper yet, but they will eventually. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week on What I Think I Know with your host, Dan Brigantino. Yeah, thank you. See you. Oh, wait, one more thing. I'm working on making this sound only as well. Let me know what you think, where it should be posted. I've heard like Apple Podcast thing. I don't know what that is. But I think like I have an app for it already. Like it comes pre-programmed. So I was looking at that. And then like Spotify, somebody told me Spotify is where they listen to podcasts. I thought that was just music, but I'm a computer idiot. So please comment down below, like this video if you liked it. If you didn't like it anyway, and y'all can suck my... never mind. But if you don't like it anyway. It'll give me a hand. And if, you don't, then, well, I'll just continue anyway. So, have a great day. God bless you.